Welcome to Stormbolter, Children of Dis. This will be probably a couple episode campaign slash one shot. I'm gonna start by reading a bunch of stuff, so bear with me. Somebody brought Clovis out again. Alright. Marcus Aurelius prophesies the destruction of the empire, and with it the world. Through his many years of study, finally Caesar grew in historic and magical powers. His years of planning and crafting the eagle are unknown, but in his old age he ushered in the most loyal and the greatest flying ship that took to the stars. For 2 decades it sailed, navigated by Marcus Aurelius and his acolytes, past the gods in the sky, past Pluto and beyond, until one day Caesar himself grew ill and at last perished. His acolytes paled in his powerful light, and the ship drifted to a nearby celestial body, now called Aurelius's Hope. Not long after, the eagle began to falter, and the first men, in their noble sacrifice, came to land and scout and colonize. But the rest never came. Instead, the second men landed hundreds of miles away and were split from the first men, and soon forgot them entirely, thinking the first men aliens and enemies. Eventually, the eagle crashed somewhere in the deep nothing with the third men who chose to stay behind, or did it, in reality, only part of it crashed, and the third men still live aboard the partially functional spaceship that orbits the planet. You are the first men. When the great eagle flew through space, and when Caesar died, you became stuck here, and the first men landed upon the planet. You were the scions of these brave first explorers, but that was many years ago. Your ancestors were those people, and you are what remains. The vast Red Sea spreads around you, a barren and cold desert. Water mostly exists underground in massive cavernous cities created by the unknown long before humans arrived here. This is where most of the first men make their homes, as the surface is uninhabitable. But all is not well in the depths or on the surface, as a horrible compound is mixed with the breathable oxygen that suits humans well enough. This is known as the red disease, which in heavy concentration can kill a person in seconds. Luckily, most places there was only enough in the air to kill you slowly over a number of years. Get my music going again. Even still, rebreathers are required everywhere, or illness will set in and death will follow. The Red Sea is the home of other great horrors, some native to this planet and others created by terrible gene splicers of the foolish second men that have crossed the great waste. Yet sometimes the surface must be braved. Only the outcast scavengers make it their home, but they are wise in the ways of the sand and have traveled where the leal servants of the emperor have not. That is not to say that the first men do not protect their borders. Why is this not playing? Oh, roll 20 in the music.
Mine's playing.
Yeah, I don't hear it.
Mine as well.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Usually if you refresh your own window, it will start.
Yeah. Alright. Let me turn that. The Red Sea is home. Did that. Over a dozen ebony obelisks dot the red waste, created by the unknown and inhabited by the legion of the first men. Those great structures keep watch over the lands that surround them and prevent the horrors from overrunning the empire below, not to mention the sinful clones that invade across the great waste from time to time. The Children of Dis has long been an important cult within the empire below. These priests and priestesses use their esoteric magic to deliver dead souls to the afterlife. They have even dabbled in reincarnation, allowing emperors to live over 300 years. Okay. The first men colonized the great underground kingdoms left by the unknown, giving them relative safety from the horrors of the surface. The empire below follows many of the same practices the Roman ancestors did in Rome. Slavery is still practiced, but at a rate much reduced due to the lack of actual people. Any incursion from the second men is immediately exploited as clones are captured and forced into subjugation. True-born second men are put to the task at elevated positions, and those that rise above their inferior breeding can be freed and integrated into society. Although called an empire, expansion is all but impossible. The first men suffered badly before the second men arrived, taking the full brunt of the horrors of Aurelius's hope. There are many names for the planet, but this is the official one. Lack of troops is a particular problem. The second men bring clones like rabbits. Exploring the other hazards past the deep nothing has not been attempted in hundreds of years, and never successfully. Indeed, there are even unexplored depths in the empire below itself. Alright, now to our game. Leander Ceto was once the Empire's greatest warrior. Granted the Lance of Longitus by the Emperor himself, Ceto's past is known more to others than himself. He was raised in a minor noble house in the Empire below. In adulthood, however, he grew in power as a great warrior and the centurion of the famed 13th Legion. In his middle age, he helped orchestrate a coup against the unlawful emperor and personally slew the emperor's personal guard. The new emperor rewarded his faithful servant with the spear that slew Jesus on earth long ago. Ceto made some strange choices, however, sending his only daughter, Antonia, to the cult of Dis to be raised. Later in life, it made sense, as though his daughter's influence and own fame was selected to be deified and reborn. The choicest young man was chosen, and Ceto was brought to the ritual grounds. His old body was sacrificed so his new could be reborn. This was a process fraught with danger, and most of these trials did not succeed. Either it simply failed, or both participants died, or dead would rise again, dead and unknowing, but alive and terrible. For Ceto is the former. His body was placed in the family's halls of the dead, but somehow his spirit was not passed to the underworld, and he arose again months later, not as a mindless creature, but a decomposed man. He did not remember anything of his past, or everything of his past, but he was Leander Ceto still, the Fire Lion. The Emperor did not put him to death due to their close bond, and instead ordered the children of Dis to reverse the curse. Antonia was given as a child to the children of Dis, but her father reminded her of her duty to her family and him in particular. Her days as a child were miserable, and little better than a slave. It was welcome that her steady companion and thrall, Clovis, was always by her side. Clovis, the child of debtors, was sold into slavery to Ceto as an infant. Though a magical bond was placed on Clovis, he was linked to Antonia. If she died, he died. He always knew this, and although they were fast friends being raised within the cult of Dis, his duty was always known. She was a trained priestess, and he was her guardian. When the time came, it was Antonia using her influence to keep her promise to her father. It would receive honor that some emperors did not, reincarnation. It was not an easy task to complete, as the head priest Adras disagreed, but Antonia used various methods through bribery, intimidation, seduction, etc. to get her way. And the ritual failed, and failed miserably. What happened? Something was coming, a response to an error, but what was it? They would surely find out soon. And one more. Wrong place, wrong time. Antilius was a scavenger and was born in the wastes. He had no life in the empire below besides when they needed something. He brought them useful goods and made a deal, or helped transport troops from time to time. Menial tasks below anyone important. That was until last month, when he made a stop near a temple of Dis. He intended to sell supplies and dump corpses of other scavenger camps that wanted to put their dead to rest. Antilius made the sale, but he was asked to stay a while longer, and when asked, he was if he would take employment as a guide, something warned him that no would not be the best answer. But it paid extremely well and ensured his desert crawler if damaged and destroyed. What could go wrong, right? And any questions so far after I read all that? All right.
I do have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So the Emperor has ordered that the curse be reversed
Yeah.
on Cedo. What does that mean? Like he wants him to just be dead again,
He
or
wants him
that?
to. Well, he wants him to be reincarnated, but it's not specific. We'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, choose players. Boom. Can you see the top screen? I know you can see the middle too, but
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep, can see the top screen.
yeah. All right. Was it playing for you, the music?
I
Mm-mm.
can hear it.
Yeah, can hear it.
What's that? Yeah, the ye old roll 20. Should have known. I can't hear it. Give me a sec.
Yeah, that sucks because this music is great and I can hear
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Makes me want to snort corpse powder.
Of course.
So good.
What can I do to get this started? I'll just refresh, see what happens.
Yeah, you're not hearing it either.
No, that's fine. Just continue. I'll just
Yeah, well,
refresh.
I'm not
yeah.
I'm not hearing it. I'm trying to.
Mine stopped also. I'll just pretend I'm at Club Raw 2004 Las Vegas.
My master music volume keeps going down to 0 for some reason when I refresh.
Yeah, this is why I don't use Roll20. All right, I get it working on my side.
There
at
it
least.
is.
Okay. The four of you have been summoned to the chamber of the Grand Augury, Adros. He is the head of the priesthood of Dis, and this room is the main chamber of that place. It sits somewhere in the Empire below, near one of the exits. This is a massive labyrinth of interconnected rooms, massive hallways with architecture and building which is totally alien to all of you. Well, maybe not to you now, but clearly this was not made by humans, or it's not supposed to be made by humans. Antilius, you're the most unfamiliar with these kinds of places, being outside usually, and you have been asked in and to stay here for a while. And you know that it's going to be, you've been told that you're going to need to escort some people. But this is the first time you've been let into this room, and you see around you others, and you can basically describe and roleplay what you're doing currently, as there's no one here right now besides the four of you and a few slaves milling about here and there that keep their head down and keep the lights lit and are just performing their daily duties.
And we've been summoned here, but we don't know why.
You don't know why. This is your your temple, Antonia, so you know this place very well. But this room, you've been summoned here by the head priest, but you're not exactly sure why. You do see your father Sito here as well. You haven't seen him probably for several months, as he's been kind of a bit kept away from the normal public, as he is clearly cursed, or so people think. Um, and he doesn't wear a mask for some reason. Um, Although he could probably blend in if he did. But yeah.
What's the name of the head priest again?
Adras.
Adras.
Yeah, Antilles has left his crawler, perhaps in the company of slaves or technicians near the surface, as the thunder and lightning forked down from crimson clouded skies, and he made his way down to the subterranean cavern ever so slowly, being careful to not make eye contact with the wrong people and to make eye contact with the right people. Eventually walking to the cavern, he feels very much alone and very small as he looked up over the vaulted ceilings. There are slaves around, but Antilles makes no mistake that he is not, perhaps not a slave, but he is not one of the first men either. He's a scavenger. He is here for a purpose, and he's here for a contract. So he looks around for his contact, whoever he's supposed to make an acquaintance with. Go ahead.
He would see 3 figures, one of them wearing a mask, but obviously shorter in stature and slimmer than the others. It's making obeisance at a sculpture of a faceless, cloaked figure. Obviously, Dis, you'd be familiar with it. And turns, and as she rises, she catches a glimpse of Antilles out of the corner of her eye, and looks to the others and says, Who is that? I do not recognize him as belonging here in the temple.
Antilles goes forth, and what would be the proper thing to do for a greeting or acknowledgement, Ted? And what do
I
you
mean,
know?
whatever you think is fine.
Yeah, he would kind of kneel down, and they wear only the mask kind of on the surface.
They wear masks typically everywhere except very hermetically sealed chambers, and this is too close to the surface for that.
Yeah, so he kind of kneels down, and he has on, Antonia can see a weather-beaten cloak that's frayed at the hem, covered in reddish dust substance that kind of falls off to him as he kind of kneels down on the ground. It is I, Antilles. I was told to come hither. You are in need of my services. Services I can no doubt perform. I am familiar with the surface. I have braved many storms and dropped off many supplies for your empire, vast though it may be. Are you who I supposed to meet?
Adras summoned you here?
Yes.
I wonder what his purpose is.
Kind of stands and look to Antonia. His purpose is opaque to me. My name is Antilles, and you may be?
I am Antonia, daughter of Sito the Blessed. And she gestures to a figure to her right, who isn't wearing a mask, or maybe he is, but the mask, if that's what it is, I'm sure that Sito can describe that. And on her left, she gestures. This is Clovis. My left hand.
Clovis doesn't say anything. You can see his eyes through the mask assessing you, whether or not you're a threat or someone that he needs to worry about. Um, you can see as you approached Antonio, he definitely stiffened up, a hand perhaps going to the pommel of his blade that he wears at his side. You can tell that most likely when you're dealing with the first men that Clovis appears to be some sort of bodyguard or escort for the Domina that he stands to the side of.
Antilos just kind of looks at the three of you standing there.
Father. Antonia turns to the one she called Sito the Blessed. Do you know of this Antilles? Has Adras spoken to you of why he has been summoned? Why we have all been summoned?
Tito is standing to the right of Antonia. Antilus, when you see Sito, you would not have seen a man of this size before. Sito's almost like a behemoth, standing tall as a tower next to Clovis and Antonia. His back is towards you, but you can make out just like the skeletal structure of the individual is something else. His hands are clenched and clasped behind his back, and he's looking up at the wall to the far end of the room, looking at the figures and figurines, the drawings, the incense burning. He turns around at you, and the visage is unnerving. He will do.
Antonio looks at Sito as if hoping for further explanation, but after none is forthcoming, she just nods. It is like a dross. Keep us waiting.
It is an old trick. Leads to nervousness on those who wait. Mind it not.
She nods again.
It does take several moments, perhaps 10 more minutes of you waiting about for the arrival of the head priest. And eventually he comes in from an antechamber that leads to his quarters. Antonia knows it. And you hear the squeal of the door as it opens. You remember as your childhood of sitting on your knees for hours and hearing that sound being when you could soon stand as he would dismiss you from your prayers. The man's mask, he must be at least in his 60s or 70s, you think, based on your own age and how old you assume he is. A venerable man, he moves slower than he used to, his black cloak billowing out beside him as he walks forward. He still has a lithe step, however, doesn't seem overly injured by age, and his head turns to each of you. taking in each of you with a quick glance. So you've arrived. Good. Good. You are the scavenger and Tillis, are you not?
I am. I am indeed, my lord. Antilus at your service. How may I be of help?
Good. Good. I wish a pilgrimage. One that I believe will answer the question of Sito and his cursed visage and life. We have never seen one come back as such. The Walking Dead, yes, but they have no memory of their previous lives, no words to speak, and they are put down like the animals they are. But no, this one, he kind of nods over to Sito, is different. His soul did not pass to the underworld of Dis as it should have. He walks forward and goes over to a bit of an altar, and he pulls a scroll open and looks over it and rewinds it and walks over and hands it to Antonia. This is an ancient scroll speaking of a place, the Verdant Valley. It is not so far, but verdant it is not, and a difficult passage it is. And you all have heard this rumor of this place that has grass and trees and a lot of foliage against the desert and the mountains of the red wastes which you reside underneath. There are ancient places there that can perhaps tell us what has happened. An ancient temple. I have been instructed to send you there, if you can reach it alive. The scavenger will take you most of the way. You must pass through the canyon of Kralak. Or perhaps he knows another way. He shrugs. There you will find the secrets of what has happened here. And we will rectify this blasphemy.
You can see Antonia stiffen at that word, blasphemy.
And Tillis just kind of slowly rotates his head to the left, looking at Sito without looking at Sito, looking for any hint of what Adras may mean by this holy curse.
Yeah, a lot of what you've noticed with the priests of Dis and their acolytes, a lot of them wear masks that are painted as skulls and dead things. Clovis has one as well, and you had just looked at Sito assuming that whatever was showing through his clear visor was a mask, but now you're not so sure. You get a kind of a better view of it, and the red is more like flesh on a skull than paint.
But yeah, he kind of looks away, maybe trembles slightly as he sees this flesh that is not flesh, this mortification of flesh. And he kind of looks away and he kind of raises his right up, adjusting his own mask, realizing that it's protecting flesh that is all too human.
Tito kind of straightens. Careful, Adras. It is not yet clear what is a blessing and what is a curse, and what is blasphemous and what is righteous. We shall do your bidding.
It is the bidding of the Emperor himself, your friend. The only reason you are not simply a dead old man.
And there must be some reason for that friendship. And I believe that friendship extends to you as well, extends to all that breathe in the service of the Emperor.
I serve Dis first and the Emperor second. And you are an unholy creation outside of Dis's purview. All men must die.
And
Yes.
yet, Dis chose to bring him back like this. Does Dis make mistakes? O mouth of silence.
It is to be seen what has happened here. That is why you go.
And we shall, in service of the Emperor, at his request and in his command. And Sito smiles back. If a half decomposing skull could smile without looking horrifyingly so.
Antonio looks at her father, still a little in awe of what he's become. We will find what this Verdant Valley can teach us. Perhaps it will confirm what I know in my heart. And she looks over at Adras. Life is illusion. Death is eternal. And she just kind of bows her head and looks at the others. If this is what the Emperor and Dis wills, then I am eager to find what truth the valley holds.
Sito doesn't bow, he just does an about face and follows behind Antonia. If you could take a obsidian obelisk moving bipedally behind an individual, that's what Sito would look like.
Antilles squints his eyes a bit through the mask as he feels his facial muscles tense and then relax. Realizing that this is the path that has been set before him, he follows both Antonia and Sito out towards the ramp, the lift, or whatever that goes towards the hellish surface of this planet.
Clovis, knowing that he is beneath the trio talking, remains silent, slowly following any direction Antonia goes. Once the conversation is settled, he settles into his own familiar following of Antonia as they make their way slowly to whatever surface, elevator, what have you, to begin their journey to this potentially fabled and seemingly paradise.
And as they walk, Antonia, almost without realizing it, slows so that Clovis is just barely behind and to her left out of a lifetime of habit, drawing comfort from that familiar presence.
And Antilles will wait until they're out of earshot of Adrest before saying anything else. Heading up towards the surface.
Yeah, you head along a long hallway. Antilles at all, this place is remarkable to you every time you see it. The ceilings are 20 feet tall above you in some of these chambers. It's lit by what you call fake fire, essentially lantern light. And it lights it just enough that you can see to walk down these long dark hallways. You seem like a speck of dirt in the giant size of them. Eventually you approach a area where you came in Antilles, which is this strange apparatus that raises the floor up and up and up and up. Um, Clovis and Antonia, you have not come outside very often, as there was no real reason to. There are several pilgrimages that you have went on to um, graveyards and other things of the dead, um, but nothing so far as what this might entail. The Canyon of Karak, I want to switch over to a map real quick to give you some idea. This is you here at the triangle, where you come out in the desert. This canyon is called the Canyon of Karak, and the tower at the end is one of the great obelisks of the Empire, which was created by the unknown before your coming to um, Aurelius's hope. Where you think the Verdant Valley is, Antilles, is somewhere in here where the star is. You know that it's supposedly surrounded by a um, what they call what did I call them? Basically, it's a desolate. It used to be a water, is from what you can tell, but they're filled with salt, a salt pan, if you will, that surrounds this area. It is supposedly extremely dangerous. You've never been in here. You've been past this black tower and around. You've been in these hills. You've probably been around these hills. There are ways around that you know to get to where this Verdant Valley is. But this area where is supposedly the Verdant Valley is extremely dangerous with all kinds of horrible monsters and that sort of stuff up there. So there's ways to go. You can go up the valley or the canyon of Karak, and you would have to pass the Great Tower. Now, these towers are controlled by the Empire, but there's a lot of political issues in the Empire with various factions, and it depends on who the governor of this tower is, in this area is, and that's a problem for you because the governor is named Mastrana the Great, which was a contemporary of Sito, who they do not get along so well. And Sito doesn't remember the exact details of what happened. It was from his youth, and he has lost some of his memories since he's been reborn. But Antonia and Antonia particularly does know that there is some ill will between the two. So to pass that tower, you would either have to sneak through or discuss with the governor or his men why you're passing. Uh, your sandcrawler is not particularly um, built to go through the deep mountains, but you could try that. Or you could try to go around those mountains and take a lengthier path. So the choice is yours. And let me switch you back over here.
What did you say it was surrounded by? Mountains?
Okay.
Here, let me go back.
The giant
The
salt flat in that
Yeah,
basin or whatever you want
there's
to
a
call it.
huge salt flat,
Okay.
and it's
this stuff,
basically
this stuff here is like the salt flat
yep.
type of deal. That's very dangerous.
Yep, and it's like depressed in the ground quite a bit. People assume that these things used to be water at one point, like
Mhm.
an ocean or a sea or something.
Mhm.
And you've never been that far, Antonia. Um, but yeah, it's well known that this Verdant Valley here, where the star is surrounded by this very hostile salt flat. I can't remember what I called them. Oh God, I don't remember what they're called in game, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's essentially what it is.
As we're going up the lift, kind of Antilles rotates his mask between the three of them, and it's silent for a while. You can just hear the mechanical clinking of the lift going up and up. He says, "The three of you, when's the last time you have been on the surface? What do you know of the above world?"
We made pilgrimage to the southern temple 3 moons ago. But not often. And on well-known, frequently traveled paths. How long do you think it will take us to get to this Verdant Valley?
Antilles kind of inclines his head as the lift reaches the surface, and this red light starts to spill into the exit area, highlighting swirling motes of dust. He gives a shrug that beneath his cloak is barely perceptible. "That depends on what route we take. But your priest, this one below that sent us on this errand, does he have any ill will against the three of you? Because, if I wasn't mistaken, he's been sending you on a fool's errand to get you killed. Not only is the canyon dangerous, but the salt flats surrounding this verdant valley, it's a death sentence. Toxic fumes, monsters, all sorts of ways to get yourself skinned. Not to mention that valley itself. What a load of tripe. I've been back and forth on these hills for many years. And every scavenger talks about that valley, but not a one has ever found it.
Dross is the mouth of silence. But there will come a time when Dis may choose another mouthpiece. Dross knows this. She looks over at her father. I believe
Tito,
he hears this sign of Dis's favor as an omen of change to come.
you are correct, my daughter. You see the state of play as it is. My return means many things to many people. To Caesar himself, it means there is a way back. that the ritual is not a game of chance, but a game of certainty. You there, Antilus, you say that many of your people have gone in search of this place and never returned? Well, how would you like to be the first among your people to say that they have returned after seeing what some consider to be paradise? Don't you want to see paradise, Angelus?
I am at your service, Sito, and your daughters. Come what may be, I've been hired to do a job, and I intend to see it through. Dis knows I'm in the same boat. If there's a way back from death, shoot it right into my veins. I'll be joining anyone, everyone below these sands soon enough.
Antonia nods. Death is truth. And she kind of looks to Clovis again to her left. But Clovis will also act as the will of Dis in keeping us here present so long as Dis wills it.
The hand of Dis guides us, Domina. For whatever Dis wills, we shall do.
Well then, you ask about days and about hours. If time is of the essence, I suggest we take the most direct route. It seems to me that no matter which route we pick, well, we're not going to be without hardship. We're not going to be without danger and the risk of death. Or worse. I say we go through the canyon. I know that route well, and I pass beneath the obelisk in the shadow of that lingering finger over the desert floor many times before. But if our rumors inform me correctly, Sito, or Lord Sito, may I say, the governor of that obelisk may have certain problems with our passage. Is that correct?
And just for reference, put them on the screen.
It is a misunderstanding that the governor chooses to continue to abide by. It is a misunderstanding, maybe the time has come to help the governor relieve himself of it, be it by acquiescence or annihilation.
Even Mastarna must look upon you and see the will of the Dark One, Father.
Indeed, my child. Come, take us forth, Antilus.
Yeah, as you say that, this lift that's been bringing you up and up and up, finally, it kind of rotates in a circle as it does, and as the top opens, this just bright light that you've never really, or very seldom experienced, shoots down upon you from the open sky. This hazy, but still bright, as the light reflects off all this reddish brown everywhere around you. And as it finally climbs and then stops at the ground, um, the sand blows over this metallic um, floor, which you stand and you see this massive um, 8 huge tires and the head of a bull placed on the front. This is Antillus's sand crawler called Set's Storm, um, which is used for multi-purpose things. It is a big vehicle, easily able to pass over this terrain, at least most of it. It has you notice uh, on the um, on the top of it is a rail gun, which is a high velocity machine gun, and on the back dorsal is a ion cannon, which scavengers are known to use to disable other vehicles and raid them, and because scavengers are also raiders usually. And life on the surface is very tough, and a lot of people do bad things to each other, which Antilles knows all about. If he participates in that or doesn't, he has to defend himself. And there's a lot of vehicles similar to this on the surface. And there are these huge ladder rungs that hang down from the side, and standing next to it are Antonia, 2 acolytes that you recognize who look displeased. If you could tell their emotions by their body language, by having to guard this big machine. They just kind of seem. They stand taller as they see you coming, as they know that probably they're going to be done with having to do this task as you get closer.
As they grow closer, she kind of looks them up and down for a moment and then waves a hand dismissively at them.
Yeah, they bow and head towards where you came to head back down to the bowels of the temple.
Antilles just starts to stride towards Set Storm and looks up the great vehicle.
Well, welcome all of you. For the coming days, this will serve as our living arrangements and our transportation. It's been as such for myself for many long years. It's perhaps not what you're used to, my lord and lady, but it will suffice. And, dare I say, Set Storm has been through many trials and has never let me down. We will pray it will continue to be so.
Blessings of the Emperor will be upon thee, Antilles. You will guide us through.
Hail
Go
Caesar.
prepare for our arrival. Antonia, my child, will you take counsel with me while Antilles prepares the vehicle?
Of course, Father.
Yeah, until it's you can hear the rungs of the ladder ring as his heavy boots kind of make contact, and he climbs up into the vehicle. You see the lights around the front of it kind of flare up, and you hear as the I don't know what type of power source those things have, some sort of reactor starts to come online, and there's a low and steady hum, and you can even feel the ground right next to the vehicle kind of vibrate.
As Antonia and Cito are speaking with one another, Clovis kind of inspects the vehicle, walking over to Antilles. Is this a reliable machine? Is it hermetically sealed from the sand and elements that we will encounter along the way?
Antilles would think it is.
Yeah, most certainly. And like I said, It hasn't failed me yet. Although, where we're going is the place of legends.
Antilles, give me a craft roll to see if it actually is hermetically sealed.
As he's
It's knowledge, and you probably have. Before we get, you probably have a bunch of craft stuff. I think you do. So you have gadgeteer. So so you have a level 3 bonus set on your crafting tools. Um, so those. So that's a level 3. So you get 2 benefits and a +3 on craft.
All right, let me go ahead and roll it here. That's craft. Oh, my laptop almost slow here.
Yeah, you're fine.
Is that intelligence?
No, it's knowledge.
Good. My brain rot doesn't.
Right.
Brain rot. You're taking a ride with somebody with brain rot. She's not expanded from. There we go. Craft. Benefit 2.
Yep. And then a
The
+3.
mods 3. All right, there we go. 23.
Terrible roll, but yeah, that works. It is hermetically sealed, so.
Yeah, as you kind of get in, like the hatch kind of closes behind Clovis. You're as like the it seals everything in, and he kind of reassures you that it should be fine.
Yeah, and as you get in, there's kind of like a what would you call it? Like a little chamber that is separated from the inside.
Like an airlock almost.
Yeah. And so you can take your masks off if you want inside.
as
Oh,
they're
yeah.
going in, and seeing that it is sealed. That is good. I don't make it to the surface much, and while it is nice to see the sky, I don't like the red sand. It's coarse, rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere except in here, Clovis. And Antilles, he kind of takes his mask off. To breathe this same stale air from inside Set Storm again. How refreshing. He kind of turns over to Clovis as he takes his mask off. You're more handsome than I imagined. At least, a mite more handsome than Cedo here. Or down, he kind of looks down at the ground where Cedo and Antonio are talking. It's good to know that flesh still clings to your skull, Clovis.
Sito is a unique individual. Be wise to know your place among him and his daughter Antonia.
As I said before, a way back from the underworld is something that would serve me well in the future, I dare say.
And his fingers are quickly flying over the controls to the vehicle, getting it ready to lumber off into the canyon.
As you talk inside, the pair of father and daughter speak on the outside.
Antonia, my child, we are about to begin a journey that was just a dream to me in the long months where I wasn't on this or on that.
Do you remember, Father, the realm of this, or the in-between? She looks up eagerly.
I cannot say I remember, but I cannot say I have forgotten. There is something there. Your order is not incorrect about it. But I do not think it is what they think it is. You must be careful now. The Order seeks to dethrone you, remove you from your position of power.
She nods. Adras has always been fearful. It is apparent in the way he exerts power over those when it isn't necessary. He is a weak leader. I think
And you are right. But there is more that you must be careful of now. Out here in this forsaken lands, they will look to divide us. But you have a way out. Your Order's folly will be your strength. Your Order is cloistered. Not many have met them. Who is to say that you are not the voice of your Order? Command the room to your will, Antonia. You
she
are the daughter of Sito.
looks thoughtful, or at least her posture would suggest it. Hmm, perhaps you are right. You have always been wise, and your journey through the other lands has not diminished that. Let us go then. Let us make Odysseus' true will known. And with that, she looks up at her father again. It's kind of almost still unbelieving expression showing in her eyes through the mask, and gives him the slight bow and heads back toward the vehicle.
Sito looks at his daughter walk away and then looks back towards the desert. The Emperor's will be done. I shall soon be by your side, your right hand man, my friend. These are just trivial tasks to get to the place that we need to. And with that, Sito starts making his way towards Set Storm.
Yeah, you head up into the massive crawler. Antonia, you see Clovis seated inside, unmasked, which is not something you have seen very often. Probably not for years at this point. As hermetically sealed chambers in the underground are very, very few and far between, and there's none in the temple. You remember perhaps 4 years ago where there was a hermetically sealed chamber in one place you went in a different part of the empire, and you are actually able to see him for the first time since you were children, perhaps. And you see Antilles as well, with his big beard. And this is kind of what it looks like inside a bit for the cockpit.
She looks from one to the other and somewhat hesitantly, she reaches up to her own mask, putting pressure on two plates to either side. There's a slight hiss, and she removes it and seats herself by Clovis, almost feeling almost naked without the mask. And she looks to him a little uncertainly. You look different than when I saw you last.
Indeed, Domina, it has been many years since we have been without masks in each other's presence. I wanted to ensure that the air quality in this crawler was of good quality, and it appears that it is. And this man seems to be quite gifted, more than just some rat that we found in the desert to get us to our next destination.
Perhaps it is a sign then of Dis's favor that the man Adras would have lead us to our death actually has some skill. And she reaches up and kind of touches her own face without realizing it. The feel of the air circulating around them being very unfamiliar.
It is nice, is it not? Even if only for a short time.
She nods and kind of looks at him from underneath her hood, stealing glances now and then, still a little uncertain. Consider he seems almost a stranger, but his voice is the same.
All right, so are you heading down the canyon? Is that your plan?
That's my plan. It's the most direct way there.
Sounds good.
Clovis goes where Antonio commands.
Okay. Give me a sec.
I want to go to F10. F10 hex.
What's F10? F10. You are in F.
F10.
Is it? Oh, is it
F10.
F10?
That's
I can't. I
F10.
can't
Yeah,
read
it's
it. Okay.
F10.
All right. Well, you are in F10. Give me a sec though. Don't worry, we're not hex crawling, really. Kinda, but not really. We use this again.
I've grown to love tables.
What's that?
I've grown to love tables.
Yeah. You head off into this. It takes several hours to get to the canyon, but eventually you see higher and higher uh, mountains on each side of you as you enter this area. And Antilles has been here several times before. It's who knows what you're going to run into. At the head of the canyon is usually fairly secure because of the black commandos and the tower, which has various defenses. However, the beginning of the canyon and the wild parts are harder to manage. Antilles, give me a challenging drive test, please, as you navigate the canyon.
Drive.
It's under agility. yeah, you're able to navigate all the things. You pass like fallen boulders, and you're able to keep the crawler safe. Um, you've seen before, maybe not here exactly, but you've seen other crawlers and other vehicles damaged badly just by driving around and abandoned. You've scavenged parts from them before, and that doesn't happen to you. However, since you're the only driver and it is finally getting to be night and the temperatures plummet outside to well below freezing, it is best that you stop. You could continue to make better time if you wish, but driving in the dark is a dangerous task, especially in a place like this. So I'll leave that to you.
As the sun starts to fade, the redness turns to maroon and then to inky blackness, or probably towards the horizon, more of a gray color. Antilles stands up behind the wheel of the vehicle and looks out the front viewport over the jagged mountain line on either side of the vehicle.
Yeah, this is where I would normally stop for the night. It's a treacherous thing. You see, only 3 marks back, I skirted around a sinkhole. That's only one of the hazards that lay before us here in this canyon. Not to mention the wildlife and scavengers, unlike scavengers that are far removed from myself. Pitiful things. They gather together in bands looking to waylay crawlers like this. We should hold up for the night. Restart at dawn. But again, Cito, Antonia, Clovis, I am at your service. And of the service of the Emperor.
Angelus, lead this journey like your life depended on it. So if you're saying that your life would be in danger if we crossed tonight, then we shall stay here. We shall stop and take some respite from our travels.
Antonia nods. As they've stopped, she's sort of leaned up closer to the windshield or viewport in the front. It's peering up into the night sky. I have never been above when the sun is down. She kind of points up at the sky.
Yeah, there's two moons you can see. One, what you consider north, and one to the east, and various stars twinkle. There's observatories in the Empire where there's telescopes and such, but yeah, the nighttime and the surface, not a good idea. So you've probably not seen this stuff with your own eyes.
Is there any water vapor? Like, does the viewports like frost up or anything like that?
Yeah, they could frost up. Yeah.
Yeah. Antilles just kind of walks towards with the windshield, and there's probably some sort of apparatus on there to like keep them clear, I would imagine.
Yeah, sure.
He kind of fires that stuff up and
Says the temperature will drop, and it will drop some more. It will drop so low that it will cause a shiver through your very bones. I wouldn't suggest going outside, not for anything, but to your question, Cito. I have no wife, I have no daughters, I have no sons. And that question I have never asked myself. If my life depended on it, would I push through the night? I have one foot in the grave, Cito. If you and your daughter think that time is of the essence, then yes. We can journey forth. But the wise thing to do, the most conservative thing to do, would be to stop.
I'm very much sure of that.
Life rushes. Death. In death, there is no reason to rush. And she's still kind of staring up through the window. I think we stay. Clovis, look. And she points up at the sky, sounding almost like a child. The stars, they're like pinholes in the cloak of the night god.
It is a most unusual sight, Domina, as he kind of looks through the viewport up as well. It is something that very rarely we are blessed to see.
Antilles just kind of sits back and relaxes in the vehicle. The pilot's chair kind of reclines back to a approximately 30-degree angle, and he puts his boots up on the console. He kind of crosses his arms and shuts his eyes and kind of says absent-mindedly,
Indeed, it is beautiful. But sometimes I wish for the security of below ground. Get sleep. In the morning, we ride at first light.
Tito stands there behind Antilles as Antilles goes to sleep on his chair. He looks out into the desert, into the night with that unblinking eye, forever awake. Posito has slept enough.
Yeah, Sito does not sleep. Sito, can you give me a perception check?
Oh.
It's in senses.
Wait. Senses, there it is. Any benefits?
No, I don't think so.
Wait, there we go.
It's pretty good. It's... Yeah, give me a sec. Okay. You watch all night, Sito. Listen. Maybe you're mesmerized by the stars or just the desert as you just peer out. Clovis, Antonia, and Tillis, you all fall asleep at some point. Just night just takes you. And Antilles, you're woken by the sun rising in the distance and the just the horizon of the reds and browns around you shining as your eyes blink awake.
Antilles' eyes do blink awake, and he puts his heavy boots back on the ground with a thud. He kind of flares his nostrils, and he can smell the heater that has been on, this kind of artificial recycled air going through the vehicle. It's warm, even though outside he sees ice forming on the windshield as the first rays of the sun start to hit it. It streams down the windshield like so many tears. He kind of says, turning in his pilot seat.
All right. The three of you. Sun has risen, and so shall we. We shall journey forth. I dare say The most dangerous of our part of our journey may still lie before us. But if we get going now, we can make good time. The fact that I still draw breath, I suppose, means that no untoward events happened overnight.
Clovis's eyes were already open, and there was no guessing from Antilles how long he had been awake. He had watched the sun slowly come up through the viewport. Yes, that is a very good guess, Antilles. We were unharmed and undisturbed over the course of the evening, though I must say I'm impressed with the integrity of your ship, as all of us were able to sleep without masks, something we rarely get to enjoy.
Ah, yes. The surface is hard. Life here is dangerous, short, and brutal. But there are some small pleasures and luxuries. As Antonia mentioned, the bright stars above that shine overhead, the freedom that comes with experiencing unbounded space overhead, wind on your face from time to time. You know, that sort of thing. But there are the monsters, the scavengers, the diseases to deal with. Overall, I think you and the Empire probably have the long end of the stick.
Antonia stirs from where she'd been curled up in a near fetal position in her seat, arms stretched protectively over herself. The first thing she does is touch her face as, again, she's struck by the unfamiliar feel of the air. And she sits up kind of somewhat groggily. Despite the heat that's provided by the vehicle, she kind of rubs her arms to get circulation going. The sunrise, another unexpected pleasure. Ah, yes. But you are right, we should go.
Is there anything you require, Domino? As he kind of settles back from gazing out as the sun coming up and goes back to the role of answering whatever need Antonio may have.
She nods, at the sound of his voice and turns toward him, starting to say some water, and then, again struck by the unfamiliar sight of his face, she pauses for a second, licks her lips nervously. Yes, some water. Where's water, Antilles?
Yeah, there's some recycled water aboard.
Yeah, Antilles would direct you towards it.
It's one of the water is one of the things that that Antilles trades for quite a bit, because there's no above ground water source. It's all in the Empire below. There's great underground. There's plenty of water for everybody down there. There's great underground lakes, fresh water, but nothing on the surface.
Yeah, the vehicle might even be equipped with, like, if that condensation kind of comes on it overnight, something that collects that and recycles it through the vehicle, filters it, makes it into potable water. Although it's not, certainly not. It probably has a bunch of trace elements in it and shit from the surface. Tastes like rust.
As Antonia's drinking, Antilles, you start to turn over the the gears to start the set storm, and you hear something and it's just not starting for some reason. You try it several times. You check gauges and whatnot, and there's something wrong with the mechanism to start the crawler. Yes.
Yeah, and Tillis kind of wipes the sleep out of his eyes, and as he's done a million times before, gets himself into the pilot seat and starts up the reactor. But it just it happens a few times, and at first he says, "It was a cold night. Just give me a second." Flips a few switches, and that's still not turning on. And he says, "Cito, Antonia, Clovis. Unfortunately, we have a bit of a problem here." Kind of puts back on his mask. He's probably checked everything inside the vehicle, and I imagine that you can't find what's going out.
That's
What's
right.
going on
Yeah, you
from
gotta go out
inside.
and check the quote
Yep,
unquote engine.
yep. So he kind of says he needs to go outside and figure out the situation.
With your leave, Domina, I will go out with him and ensure there isn't anything afoot.
She looks over at Clovis and nods. Yes, my thought. Exactly. Go then. And she
Until
goes to the window and kind of watches out over the landscape from there.
what's the gravity like on this planet? About the same as Earth.
Yeah, about the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So you see Antilles and kind of looks pretty heavy as he kind of eases himself down the ladder, and then falls the final 3 feet onto the ground, and a few plumes of red dust swirl up underneath him. Yeah, immediately starts to kind of circle the vehicle, uh, looking for any damage that maybe happened on the way in that he didn't notice at all. And there's probably some service panels on the vehicle
Yep.
that he could some further diagnostics on that he could not get from the pilot's chair.
Yeah, you look around. You don't see any damage. You walk underneath the there's enough room for you just have to kind of kneel a bit to get underneath it, and you kind of start checking it out. And it's very obvious as a bunch of panels have been left open, and just probably it's hard to assess very quickly, but several parts have just been stripped out of the crawler.
And he kind of turns over to Clovis and he says, "Well, my decision to stop for the night, Clovis, seems to have been the exact wrong one. See here, we've been stripped for parts overnight. Some bastards braved the frozen wasteland so they could get a few meters of alloy piping. Look here, the motivator's missing, not to mention the flux capacitor."
As Clovis stares at all these things that should be there
Houdini!
that are not, he kind of looks around. Is there a chance that these scavengers have a base or a hideout somewhere nearby that we could track them? I don't know how quick the wind covers the tracks in these red sands.
Yeah, you see no tracks anywhere, and as you say that, the wind just kind of blows sand over your boots.
The wind here is merciless, not to mention the nighttime. The permafrost overnight should have covered up any tracks, not to mention the winds that'll blow dust over anything that will lead us in the right direction. I could perhaps
work on fixing this, but it may take too long. I don't even know if I have the right parts on board. I'll need to do an inventory.
Is it something that can be jury-rigged until we reach the obelisk and Governor Mastrana's location?
I don't know.
Be a tough one, but possibly.
Is that craft?
Yeah, you get 2 benefits and +3 to all your craft rolls. Before you do that though, yeah, if you wanna, you could potentially take parts from the weapon systems to fix it, but it would still be difficult. And if you attempted to, you would have to then you would have to put the weapon systems. It's going to take you a day regardless. If you want to try to fix it, or you can go off on foot. It's kind of up to you
How far
guys.
are we on foot from the obelisk?
Probably 3 days on foot. Another day by crawler. But it's gonna take you a whole day to fix it anyway. If you're
Antilles
successful.
says to Clovis, "We should head back inside. Speak to your lord and lady. This is a difficult decision. I perhaps could bypass the missing parts, but it would require scavenging circuits and whatnot from the weapon systems. Unfortunately, that would leave us defenseless. And we know that there are other souls in these here hills, so I would recommend against that. Of course, we could go on foot, but that would take 3 to 4 days. If there's a windstorm, there's no good solution to this, Clovis."
I will relay what we have discovered and see what they order us to do.
Very well.
And with that, Clovis kind of leaves him to his work and makes his way back into the chamber and walks into Cito and Antonia. I have bad news, it seems. During the night, some scavengers came and tore out some critical parts. The crawler will not function in its current state. Antilles believes he could possibly jury-rig something, but it'll take the majority of the day to do. The other option, which I do not recommend, is proceeding on foot.
How difficult would it be for us to camp outside at night, considering how cold it is, without, the protection of the crawler?
Antilles has, just for ease of that, Antilles has portable tents, or at least one big one, that would keep you warm enough. It doesn't get, it gets just below freezing at night. It doesn't usually get like too terribly cold. It never gets too warm. It's like a cold desert. But
How long does he think the repair would take?
The majority of day. He said it would take 1 day to fix, 1 day of travel in the crawler to arrive to our destination, or 3 days of walking. And while this does not concern me, most assuredly his crawler will be stripped bare by the time we return.
She looks over at her father. Seems to me it is worth gambling the 1 day. But thank you, Father.
Yes. The wastes are no place for us in the night. The crawler keeps us safe. Out there, we will be at the mercy of fate. I do not wish to tempt her.
Indeed, fate is fickle, unlike our Lord Dis. Clovis, tell Antilles to do what he can to get the vehicle functional again.
In the meantime, Clovis, you and I shall man the guns, just in case somebody comes again a knocking.
I will walk the perimeter, Lord, as I have no skill with a gun. I am much better with my blade here. Perhaps something more offensive in mind. Instead of waiting for scavengers to return, I can walk a perimeter while Antilles works. Keep an eye out for any unwanted visitors.
Very well.
So, Antilles, you can attempt to repair the crawler. Let's see. This would be a in the wrong section. System. Power levels, difficulties. Okay. This is going to be so. This is a hard skill check. So it's going to be a 29. You can disable one or more of your weapon systems for benefits. So if you disable one, you can disable them both for 2 additional benefits. You already get 2 benefits and +3 on your craft roll. So if you wanted to, you could disable both your weapons and get 2 more benefits. So if you got 2 more benefits, actually, so you would be rolling for. Actually, the next time you roll craft, you should do the fail over thing, because you got craft 3, so you apply 1 benefit. That's going to give you 8d10 keep 4, and then the next one is a +3. Normally, so you'd have a +6. Now, if you want to, it depends if you want to. You'll get another kept die probably eventually. If you,
I'm gonna.
yeah,
If I want to spend a fate point, I
Yeah.
can spend one,
for an extra
and
benefit. Yeah.
I'm gonna do that and try not to disable any of the weapons.
Okay, so let's see what you're going to be rolling. So it's gonna you're capped. So you normally have 2 benefits. So you're going to have a extra kept dice. So what you're going to do is you're going to roll 8d10 keep 5 +3. Without doing that, you need to hit a 29. And I'll lower your fate by 1 for now. So you just have to do that manually.
Those exclamation points go before or after the D10.
After, do a double one.
So it's after the K. Keep
Yep.
5.
Yeah. Well, 8d10 keep. Yeah. 8d10 keep
10 keep 5.
5.
Exclamation.
Yep.
+3.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's good.
You are able to get it jury rigged without using any more of your stuff, the firearm systems. It does take you all day long, so go ahead and describe how that looks.
So while Clovis walks the perimeter, the planet surface slowly warms up, perhaps not to a balmy 80 degrees, but warm enough that icicles aren't forming on his shoulder pads as he circumambulates the set storm. Antilles is kind of at work on the bottom of the craft with a tool that occasionally sends out showers of blue sparks. Eventually, kind of into the early afternoon, he closes the final hatch, and you hear a power tool go zzz. He kind of screws it shut, and heavy boots are heard clanking up the ladder, and he enters and finally removes his mask once again. You can hear him; he's kind of out of breath. I think I've done it.
The weapon systems are still online, but I found the way around the damaged circuits. I replaced the conduit with some spare parts, and this may be a god of death. But in death we have been given new light, Antonia. We should be ready to move. At your command.
He kind of coughs and like some rust-colored sputum comes up out of his lungs and kind of wipes it onto his sleeve and kind of snorts.
When he came in and started talking, it took Antonia a minute to come out. She'd been spending the day in meditation and prayer, asking for the mercy of Dis and for him to inspire Antilles to get the vehicle moving. And as he speaks, a slow smile spreads across her face. Dis has been merciful. I'm glad to hear this. Thank you for your efforts, Antilles. But it makes me wonder, should we stay still this night, or at least keep the vehicle moving, even at a slow pace, as it would be presumably harder to strip?
I agree. Knowing what we know now, I do not think we should bring this lumbering beast to a standstill. We can slow our pace the next night without coming to a stop. I think that's certainly doable, and I think a wise course of action. I do not think I can work this miracle a second time. I've used most of my spare parts.
She nods. Then take a moment to refresh yourself, Antilles, and then let us continue on.
We don't have much daylight left, my lady. A cup of water shall be enough, and we'll bring the set storm to motion once more and continue our journey towards the obelisk.
And she nods.
Let's leave Clovis behind. No.
I want to be your new thrall. Sounds great. Yeah. So you get behind the wheel, and you start off at night. There are lights, which are good and bad, right? They're good for seeing the way, and they're bad because they show everybody where you are. Would you like to run with lights or not?
Yeah, we'll go with lights, but just slow speed.
Okay. Go ahead and give me a normal drive roll then.
Balances out. Drive. Physical skill.
That's good. Yeah, you take it slow. You got the lights on. You're going through the night, and you evade some large rocks and boulders, and the canyon's getting more and more narrow as you go forward. As it does, it comes kind of to a choke point at the tower, and you see this flash off in the distance, and this just kaboom, like behind you, and all this rock is just shot in the air as something just shoots at you from the canyon wall. And you can let me know what you're gonna do.
From the canyon wall?
Yeah, somewhere over there. It's hard to see. You just see a light flash, and but you can't really see what it is. It's over towards. It's coming from one side of the canyon.
Is it coming from close to where we think the tower is?
Oh no, you're not
No,
close to
no.
the tower at all.
Not
Okay,
even
so we
close,
don't
yeah.
have any reason to believe that this is their defenses.
No, no.
And Tilos would just kind of immediately, if there's any cover like or rocky crags between where that flash of light was and where their position is, he would try to put that in between them.
Oh,
And he
yeah,
kind of,
not really.
yeah, he just kind of hunker down and say, Cito, Antonia, Clovis, did you see that?
How close was it?
The shot came from a couple hundred yards away. It's
Okay.
Mhm.
Turn
Kill
your
the-
lights off.
Kill the lights and move out of position.
Antilles kind of kills the lights and kind of turns the vehicle to the right. And can actually pick up speed a little bit.
yeah. There at this part in the canyon, it's narrow enough where turning
Can't really do
around,
much. Yeah.
you could just barely turn it around without like stopping.
Mm-hmm. Antilles kind of shouts back. Any of you trained with a weapon? He kind of points towards the top deck of the vehicle.
Is Cito?
Yeah, does Cito have training in weapons?
I think he's a melee guy. Anybody with dex is going to be okay. They're heavy weapons. Or you could, Antilles, you could just let yourself sit there and jump in, and you could shoot. You have plenty of heavy weapons, but you also there. I don't know if anybody else can drive. I don't know if anybody else can.
I can try and shoot.
Take your time. She kind of points. I think it came from over there, up on the cliff.
He was there.
I will do what I can. And kind of, Clovis has his mask on and he's sealed it, not trusting the seal to gunfire, and goes up into the gunnery deck or the chair and starts kind of going over the procedures and brings the weapon online to point at the weapon along the ridgeline.
Antilles, after he fires, let's reposition.
Roger that.
Yeah, at about that time, everybody, let me make sure. Everybody, give me initiative. We'll do kind of an abbreviated vehicle combat thing here.
What's a level 2 skill bonus when doing?
Okay, you
At
have
this
Keen,
level.
right? You have Keen too.
I have key 1 and 2. Yep.
It is going to be bonus sets. Let me see.
0.01.
Wow. Oh wait, there's a bunch of weird shit up here. Hold on. From like a game forever ago. 0.01, that's awful. Okay,
She's just really relaxed. She's
Yeah.
totally.
what did you say it was, Waterpack?
It's a level 2 bonus.
That's
Let me-
one benefit and a +3. Let's see. And these guys. Yeah. right. Clovis and Antilles, you go first. You can pick. I don't care which one.
So I
Now,
tried
if you
any,
have the
any-
PDF up, you can use any of the vehicle things, or you can just kind of say, "Well, I do this," and we'll figure it out.
yeah. I don't
Yeah,
like.
that's fine.
Basically, I'm gonna try to give him an advantage of some sort by altering my speed, even if I can't maneuver. Alter my speed right when he shoots, or angling him in the right way, etc. That's what I would try to do, if that's possible.
Let me see. System is. You want to be? Do you want to be in the Are you in the pilot's chair? Or are you in the engineering chair or deck or whatever the systems deck? Because you can give him an assist with being in there. I don't care which one you're in, but you need to.
I'd probably still need to be driving, I would say.
Yeah. Um. Yeah,
I
we
mean, for
can
the
just we
narrative,
can just do that. You can give him like
for the narrative or whatever.
yeah. All right. Okay, so you're gonna shoot their WP. You can see him, but you're gonna take a negative to the shot because just there's no light. It's hard to see in the dark. So I'd probably give you like a hardship to your
Now,
shot.
I also get a hardship for not having that trained, or I just
No,
don't
no. If you don't have it trained, that just
explode.
means they won't explode. Yeah,
All right,
it's heavy weapons.
so do one hardship. So Clovis, not terribly familiar with weapons, let alone heavy weaponry, kind of lines up his shot at the left one and ready aims, waits for possibly
You can't aim too. Remember, it's just like
Antilles.
yeah.
Well, yeah, they'll go first anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot.
Should I
We'll
give
see
a
how bad I
drive
miss.
or whatever?
Say what?
Should I do my drive or whatever to see if he gets a bonus?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and make a drive, and we'll count it as an aim for him. So, uh, just go ahead and do a drive versus a 21. Yeah, okay. So you get a benefit then on your shot and a
One
hardship.
benefit, one hardship.
You can aim and get two benefits.
Yeah, that's up to you if you want to aim, but then yeah, they're gonna go first.
What range are we at?
For you, a medium. We just make it easy. Everybody's at medium.
What?
Oh
Wow.
wow, wow.
So
Yeah,
as
you
he kind
miss.
of as he goes to
Did you point at them? Did you target them?
yeah, I clicked
Okay, that's
on
a hit then.
yeah, the
That's a
left
hit,
one.
a two. Because they have. Let me make sure their base defenses are correct. Because yeah, they're just 5. Yeah, so you hit that one. And the damage on this thing is in the. So 2, you barely hit. And it's you're using the rail gun, right? Oh
Mm-hmm.
shit. Go ahead and roll. Okay, so hold on. Let me look at something real quick. Because they only shoot at rate of fire 5. The railgun does, or you could use the ion. Which one did you use? The railgun or the
We'll
ion?
stick with railgun.
Okay, so hold on. Let me see what rate of fire 5 is. I can't remember. I think it's another hardship. Rate of fire. Where is it? My PDF is very slow. Sorry. Okay, dude. No, what? Oh. Somehow it just. My computer's going funky. There we go. No. Hold on, sorry guys. It's just I'm having some tech issues.
No worries.
Why is this so slow? Okay. Yeah, so go ahead and go ahead and roll 2. Okay, so you're gonna miss.
Well, I do have an ability where I can re-roll. Let me make sure this is once per session so I don't blow my load super early.
Yeah.
Or I can re-roll from one attribute, but at a -3.
Okay, well let's finish this roll first. Roll 2 hardships and a -3.
Do
So
those explode?
yeah, 2d10 and then -3. Let's just see how bad it is. Oh goodness.
That actually should be a 23 instead of 17.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, so that would be a -21. You could re-roll if you wanted, if you thought it would
Nah,
matter.
it won't matter.
Yeah, it's just like this thing is like shooting so fast it's hard to like hold on, and it's dark. It just you see the flares like fly above. Even with Antilles, just do that. Oh man, what was your initiative? 46, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
That's what I don't like about this. Antilles, and it's their turn. They're gonna return fire. They have a hardship from um, the site as well, since you turned off your running lights. Where is I'm gonna have to just roll it from my sheet. Medium range. It's a hit. Let's see. And the cannons do Gauss cannon 40 damage. So it's 41 damage with piercing. Okay, so 41 damage, and that's done. It just ricochets off, because they just shot a single shot. Doesn't pierce the armor. Your armor is 60, and your break is 55. So takes over like 100 to hurt you. This one is going to turn on automatic fire. So he is actually going to do a hardship and a -3 on this next shot.
Let's pause in silence for 10 seconds so he knows when to cut.
Alright, sounds like Cypher's back. Alright, so, you see this, as the sun rises this time, you didn't have a good look at it. You saw kind of the lights flashing from it. Here in this wasteland, this thing looks ancient, but at the same time, totally alien. Different than anything you've ever seen, except until us who have seen it before. Some of these are dotted all around the red wastes. There's probably a half a dozen of them, and there's governors that govern them by leave of the emperor throughout the red wastes, and they're pretty much to secure the underground kingdoms. And this one's no different. It does have, you see red lights that kind of flash, and you actually see flyers that come to and from. It's pretty much the most technological marvels in the red wastes. As a lot of your society is built around magic and esoteric knowledge, not necessarily technology. There is technology, but this is the forefront of that technology, which is kind of bewildering for most of your society, except those people that actually deal with it on a day-to-day basis, which is very few. They're called the Black Guard, and they always wear very similar black carapace armor, and they're highly militaristic, as they are the guardians of these important sites. And you do begin to approach it in your crawler, and Antilles knows eventually you'll be stopped and either given permission to pass or not. He's never been on these people's bad side. They usually let scavengers go by as long as they aren't messed with, because they serve a good purpose, and that's usually to ferry supplies above ground. So you do begin to approach, and I'll let you kick off a roleplay there.
Antilles pilots the heavy vehicle, kind of lumbering and jolting over rocks, mostly red, sometimes black. Eventually, they come under the long, cool shadow of this obelisk as it towers into the air. Looking skyward, and Antilles can see the blinking red lights running along this tower, and he kind of stops and says,
Well, this is our moment of truth. They either let us by or they don't. Let's hope that the guard on duty remembers old Antilles. Let's hope I didn't beat him at the gambling table either. The three of you, look as small, as unobtrusive as you can.
Antonia looks over at Cedo. And she shrugs and kind of pulls her hood over her face a little.
Tito stands tall, like an obsidian tower of his own among them, making no attempt to hide.
The crawler pulls up and is forced to stop. There's basically a barrier that is set across this cavern. The tower is almost directly above you at this point, just off to the side, and in the way are these huge cannons, which put the ones you saw earlier to shame, the mobile scavenger cannons. and they're pointed from all these apparatuses. There's this huge barrier. It's almost like a gate. This you're not until as you know it descends into the ground to let you pass, but there's these huge spikes that come up out of the ground with it. There's almost no way to run it. You would have to go up on the banks of the actual cavern to get by on the crawler. Walking forward are two of the commandos, and let me bring them out. They just head towards you in the crawler, walking casually, and they come over to the side, and you hear one of them say, "There's a two-way comm. You can hear things from the outside too, and through its modulated voice through the masses. All passengers and pilots disembark for review and search."
And is this a? They don't search every vehicle, right? They usually just let them pass.
No, they usually search every vehicle.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Until it's just kind of looks nonchalant. Gets on and out of the vehicle. Heavy boot steps again, going down the ladder till he's kind of standing on the ground next to the commandos.
Antonia puts on her mask. Uh, they are escaping with a hiss as it seals, and she steps out of the vehicle somewhat gingerly, but with a straight spine. Hood somewhat over her mask. She goes to stand near Antilles.
As always, Clovis is close behind her, eyeing the two guards and the surrounding area for any potential threat to both Cato and, more importantly, Antonia.
Ito exits last.
As everybody exits, they look at each other and look back at you and approach Antilles, who maybe they recognize, and one of them says, "Who are all you? We have not seen you before. Why do you wish to pass?"
And yeah, Antilles is there. He has his mask on, obviously, since he's outside. And he just kind of says,
You know me. We've done business before. Antilles. Shipment of potable water to the villages just southeast of the Salt Flats. Who are these? My crew. Yeah. Antilles is doing just fine these days. Picked up a couple crew.
Go ahead and
Help.
give me a deception roll.
this is going to be bad. Let's see. Not used to doing my laptop and figuring out where my sheets are. That's just going to be social, right?
Yeah.
Social. Deception, you said?
Yeah.
And I get nothing.
Probably makes sense. I mean,
Hey.
Antonia's not really wearing a disguise. Her garb is probably priestly. Ceto is a giant walking zombie.
Yeah, they look at you and look up at Ceto because he is huge, and they say, "What's this?" And they're looking at Ceto, kind of One of them points their laser rifle at him.
Antilla says,
Sup, mask?
Yeah, they kind of are like, "Who are you?"
I think Antonia steps forward and says, "We pass by order of the mouth of this. Do not risk his wrath, the wrath of death."
And they look to Antonia, look to each other, and you hear something kind of muttered into like some sort of comm system. Um, and you see like this. It's hard to tell from a distance, but it's like specks flying out of the tower, and as they get closer, you realize what it is. It's like more of these guys with like jetpacks on, and they kind of land around you. Now there's like probably a dozen of them, all just kind of landing around you. Um, but one of them seems to be different than the rest. And he lands with them. And Cito, you recognize him right away as Mastarna. And he is almost as tall as you. He lands and he's got a heavy power suit on. And you just clank, clank, clank. And he comes and he looks at Antonia and he says, "The children of Dis have come north. Why?"
That is the concern of this.
"Everything that passes this tower is my concern." He looks to Cito and he seems a bit confused. Like, "You seem familiar, but I cannot place you. What is your name?" You
Ito
move.
just looks on to Mastana and doesn't say anything. And then looks down to his daughter and then looks to Mastana.
None, no one who has been born or hatched of that is beyond the reach of Lord Dis. Do you seek to interfere in our holy business?
"I seek to understand what you are doing. This is my governance by the will of the Emperor."
We seek only to pass to the Verdant Valley beyond.
The Fertid Valley. It does not exist.
And
Have
in
you
that
sought?
case, you will be rid of us, Sito now finally speaks. For is it not true that the deserts beyond your obsidian tower are as deadly, desolate? So, either ways, we drive towards our doom. Then let us pass.
Considers for a moment. He looks to Antonia again. "What is your name, did you say?"
I'm Antonia, Whisper of Dis.
Antonia. Antonia. He seems to be considering. It's hard to say because he's completely armored and helmeted. But I think you should come to my tower and we will discuss this further.
She cocks her head and kind of glances to Cito before thinking better of it.
Then we are in your debt, Lord Marshal of this Obsidian Tower.
She takes her cue from that. Yes, a moment of respite from our travels would be welcome. Peace of Dis be upon you and your kin.
My patron is Junos, the god of doors in the beginning. This is only for when you pass this land to the next.
But all must pass.
So they say. But it has not been the truth, has it? I have heard of your experiments. The Emperor's reborn. It does not seem like this. It does not seem as if something natural with the order of things. But who am I to judge?
You are not to judge the ways of the gods, the ways of my master. Dis may choose who to take and who to return.
Well, it is fortunate we are in the land of the living, and I am the judge. Come, we will speak more. And he actually, he doesn't really wait at all. His pack just fires and he shoots back up into the air and flies back towards the tower. And you see something else kind of slowly come out of the tower and fly towards you. Looks like some sort of small ship, like a transport ship. And these are things that you've really never seen before. These are technological marvels. They're jetpacks. They seem to have some sort of advanced armor compared to yours at the very least. This ship coming down, something flying. Antilles has seen this stuff, but not you guys. And one of the commanders says Antilles, "Well, watch your crawler. Don't worry."
I'm sure you'll watch it. Much obliged.
And after a few moments, this cargo ship lands next to you, and one of these black commandos comes out, and the door careens open, like stairs like extend down from the entryway, and he waves over for you to come with him. This way.
Tonya pauses almost imperceptibly, looking to Cito and then to Clovis, and straightens her spine and walks with a deliberate gait, not hurriedly, toward the ship.
Clovis quickly follows in tow, knowing that this is a battlefield he's not prepared for, one of politics, but if the governor was foolish enough to try anything, he'd be ready to protect his patron.
All right. Cedo and Tillis, you're getting into, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. You climb in, and there's these large. It's actually standing, and you kind of hook in um, with a belt and a hook on basically hooks into a latch on the wall, and eventually you feel this odd feeling in your stomach as you're lifted up off the ground, flying. You look down out of the viewports, which there are those, and you see the crawler getting smaller and smaller as you fly up into the closer to the tower, and your perspective shifts as it turns, and you're looking at the mountains to the side, and the ship slowly approaches the tower, and you're getting closer and closer, and you can see it almost looks like you're going to hit it, and then kind of at the last moment opening, you see it in the tower, and the ship just goes into it, and all is then the viewport switches, and all you see is all this huge bright like fake fire lights everywhere, but stronger than what is in the caverns. The empire below is always it's always dim. This is like the light is almost overbearing, this fluorescent light almost burning your eyes, and the ship sits down on this large black thoroughfare, with you see dozens of people moving by, similar to the commandos or otherwise, but people that are doing things on these huge boxes of terminals. There's not many in the empire below, but there are some, um, and the door opens and the stairs extend into the inside of the Black Tower. And you can give me some final role play, and that's where we'll end it tonight.
As they fly up into the air, Antonia unconsciously reaches over and kind of clutches at Clovis's forearm. That one point of never changing solidity that she's always known. She looks out the viewport, her stomach sort of in her mouth as she watches the earth and the vehicle recede. She swallows hard and tries to disguise her discomfort and alarm behind the usual mask of calm and unconcern.
Seeing Antonia place her hand on his forearm, he kind of looks down at it and up to her mask and kind of quietly whispers, steady, as he knows she will be the kind of one that leads them through this particular minefield before moving on to their next objective. But he too kind of revels in the building and the grandeur of it all as they slowly rise above the ground to wherever they are going to.
I'll let Cedo have the last word, but for his part, Antilles, it's kind of gets in the ship with everybody else, and whether he's been in a ship or not is probably immaterial because he looks at the look on the others' faces, or not their faces, but their body language, and the fact that he's lived above the surface for so long becomes readily apparent. At the same time, though he's accustomed to operating up here, this political arena they are going into currently is not his forte, and so he looks a little bit
at this ease.
Tito, towering behind all of them, looks up out at the sky, sees the obsidian tower and the desolate landscape beyond. He can't quite remember what was his first thoughts when he came into being into this new existence. But all he knew is that the Emperor had a way out of this existence. And though Sito was once lost, he has now been found. And he can be the hand of the Emperor's will on this land. He looks down to Antonia and he grabs her right shoulder and slowly turns her around. Existence flows past us like a river. The what is in constant flux. The why has 1,000 variations. Nothing is stable. Not even what's right here. The infinity of past and future gapes before us, a chasm whose depths we cannot see. Remember, as we enter the realm of Mastana, he has made himself the emperor here.
She cocks her head to one side slightly, soaking up his words, almost as if they came straight from Dis's lips. She pauses for a moment and then nods. He thinks he is emperor here. Life is illusion. Death is eternal. And she kind of reaches up almost hesitantly and puts her hand on his upper arm as he's clutching her shoulder. Her father, almost as unfamiliar to her as even when he was alive. It was a vague image in her mind, but now that he's back in this form, he's almost more tangible, more real to her with this face of death. And as she touches him, she feels the touch of eternity, of the reality of death's eternal nature. And it steadies her.
As the screen begins to blacken in Sito's mind, he has a flashback, remembering his youth for a moment. It's as if he's watching himself. He remembers what he looked like, virile, young, strong, towering over his enemies. He sees himself almost naked, wearing nothing but a loincloth and a gladius in his hand. And with him, he sees Mastarna, also dressed similarly. They're standing back to back, and there are men rushing at them, and they slay them over and over again until the bodies begin to pile. He looks around, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of faces looking down upon them, cheering the blood, cheering the death, cheering their victory. They scream out for more, and more they give as men rush them with spears and tridents and nets. But they're all slain over and over. And his vision focuses once again as his feet hit the ground as he exits the ship. And that's where we're gonna stop for tonight.
All right.
Praise this.